Isaac Lukando, who joins us from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and from our newsroom here in Nairobi, we have Football Kenya Federation Head of Communications, Jeff Kinyanjui. Jeff, I'll begin with you. What would you say has been the reaction to Kenya's admittedly tough draw in Group A?
Well, I think it came as a surprise to most Kenyans. I was in the room as the draw was being announced. I know to find ourselves in the group of death was surprising for most people, but to me it was exciting. Like I've always said, there are no underdogs in African football and world football for that matter nowadays. So it's really a surprise to most Kenyans. They didn't expect such a tough group. But for us, I think it's a good group, and just to rally fans to come to the ground and watch exciting matches. That for me is the key.
Right. Isaac, let me come to you in Tanzania. Many from the outside do seem to think that Tanzania got the easiest draw of the four groups. Is that the case from where you and other Tanzanian observers sit?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Here, there are two schools of thought. You talk to members of the general public, they will say that Tanzania has been dealt a good hand, and there are those that think that it might not be as easy as it seems. And those, so far, we've heard from coaches at national level, at least we've heard from 2 or 3 of them, giving their comments on the draw. Well, they say that the draw is relatively smooth or easier than compared to other groups, but it is not as easy. They talk about, for example, Tanzania's ranking. While Tanzania is ranked 106th in the FIFA rankings, and you see a team like Burkina Faso being ranked at 66. The rest of these teams fall under Tanzania, but when you look at the actual performances within the CHAN tournament, you see that some of these teams have done better than Tanzania in the tournament. Tanzania has consistently failed to move past the group stages, something that is a bit of concern for these coaches, and they say that the team needs to be prepared and work hard to achieve success in terms of not only moving beyond the group stages but making it as far as the semi-finals. But there is a bit of optimism among them that they could reach far. So here in this neck of the woods, there are two schools of thought. So there are those that feel that, yes, this will be a bit of a breeze, it's a bit easier to handle for Tanzania, and there are those that don't want to be complacent in approaching this particular group.
Right. Darren, let me come to you. The picture is not so clear for Uganda's Cranes right now. Of course, the country is still waiting to find out 2 more opponents in Group C. What are some of the possible nations that could complete this group?
I think with the exit of Tunisia and Libya, the gap that they've created, that the tournament is standing at 17 teams and not 19 as earlier planned. With 3 teams already in Group C, where Uganda was the top seed in the draw. The CAF has already put it out that there will be a mini tournament that will be played, and I think it involves about 7 countries, including Comoros, Egypt, South Africa's Bafana, as well as teams including Malawi that will go into a mini tournament that will be played to get 2 teams that will come out perhaps by August, have the teams already qualified into that group. And perhaps it should be the first time in history that CAF conducted a draw with some teams already still missing for a final tournament. But of course, that does not water down the kind of task that Uganda has got on its hands. All the host countries, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, having 5 teams in their group except the defending champions Senegal, who have only 4. But the task on paper seems a little lighter for Tanzania, but much tougher for Kenya.
Right. I want to talk about preparations off the pitch. Jeff, let me come back to you here in Nairobi. Following that surprise announcement by CAF earlier this week that they are going to postpone CHAN to August this year, is there a fear perhaps that the 3 countries could become complacent in completing the construction and renovations of required infrastructure? After all, they've just been given 6 months.
Yeah, for outsiders, there's lots of pessimism, but I'd prefer we look at the positive side. For the first time, I've seen a lot of movement, especially in Kenya, in regards to sports infrastructure. So from where I sit, I don't think there's worry. And if you've listened to all the stakeholders, that is mainly the government from Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya speaking, even the Football Federation bosses, it tells that, I mean, they are very clear that it give them more time to finish the infrastructure. And, just today I was at Kasarani and later moved to Nyayo. And you can see that the work is still going on. I mean, CHAN is not just a simple tournament, it's a precursor to Afcon 2027. So I don't think there's any cause for concern. I think this is just a good chance for us to ensure that everything is ready for CHAN in August. So from where I sit as an insider, I don't think there's any cause for concern. We will be ready in August. We were ready, but we'll even be more ready for CHAN in August.
All right, music to the ears of Kenyan fans here. Isaac, moving away from infrastructure now, what are the elements of preparation should the three countries work on now leading up to August?
It's an interesting question that you pose because in the last few days there was a meeting held here. It was convened by the government, and a lot of stakeholders were brought together. And some of the questions that were asked towards the government was what the government had planned to do in terms of publicizing the event. Yes, in terms of infrastructure, a lot had been done here in Tanzania, but the question was whether enough had been done to publicize the event. When you speak to the general public here in Tanzania, members of the public, they are aware that this tournament is happening, but some of the football analysts that we've been talking to say that if we're at 60% temperature, perhaps they would like to get it to 100%. And so they were talking about things like having billboards in key places like airports and other key locations in the country to alert not only the public but also incoming visitors that there is such a tournament. And when asked this question, the government spokesman in particular said that this week they were supposed to set up billboards and sort of ramp up the campaign to talk about CHAN and get everybody fired up for the tournament. So the bone of contention here had been, whether the government had been doing enough to publicize the event. Yes, people know about the event, but stakeholders were saying that maybe something more could be done to enhance the feel of the event here in Tanzania.
Right, and Darren, let me come to you now. The hosting goes three ways this time. Three countries will have home advantage as co-hosts. Could this possibly lead to one of the East African nations maybe retaining the CHAN trophy for once?
Wow, quite tough, but I must say in terms of a percentage of chance, it's pretty difficult, even if you have three East African countries among the 19 that will be competing, and all of them are co-hosts. I think in history of the CHAN competition, only one host nation has gone on to win this title. I think should be Morocco back in 2018. And regardless, we've seen several hosts manage to last the mile in the competition. One, because players have a lot of familiarity with the conditions. They are home. And I think it should play in part for debutants such as Kenya, who have tried to host a major football championship on the continent, not once but twice, and failed back in 1996, the Afcon, and then the CHAN itself in 2018, which eventually went to Morocco, as well as Tanzania, who are in the finals for the third time. For Uganda, on the flip side, I think they've participated in the last 6 editions in a row since Sudan 2011, but ironically, they've stopped in the group stages, and despite the fact that there have been big wigs in the region, they've only managed to win just a game in the group stages of the CHAN competition, which was actually against the eventual champions Senegal in Algeria at the start of 2023. So in terms of chance, based on history, it's pretty difficult. Looking at the home advantage, perhaps it should elevate the percentage for all the East African countries. But to make the semi-finals, I think it will be pretty difficult for a team like Kenya, especially with the kind of group that they've got, that has got former tournament finalists in Angola, as well as the record champions, both the Democratic Republic of Congo and Morocco, who have each won twice.
Right, gentlemen, we're almost out of time here. Jeff, I'll come to you for the final say. Hosting CHAN will, of course, be the perfect audition for East Africa, those three nations ahead of the main event, the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. Very briefly, how crucial do you think it'll be for the region to host a successful tournament this year, looking ahead to 2027?
Just before I answer that, my friend Darren, I mean, just trust Ugandans to write off Kenyans every time, but, you know, we've always won against them. I mean, if you look at the history, Kenya has won more games when they play against Uganda. But now back to your question, it's very important for East Africa to host such tournaments. You know, these tournaments have mostly been held in the recent past in Morocco, Egypt, and, you know, in West Africa. But it's very key for East Africa to host such tournaments. I mean, it will put us ready ahead of Afcon, and even beyond Afcon, our leagues will now have better pitches, better infrastructure, and, you know, even technical know-how. So it's very important for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania to host a successful tournament, because really it's just a test ahead of Afcon 2027. So I think we have our work cut out, and it's very, very, very key for us to put a good show.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights on our special program this evening. Sports journalist Darren Kiyune joining us live there from Kampala. Our correspondent Isaac Lukando speaking to us from Dar es Salaam, as well as the Football Kenya Federation Head of Communications Jeff Kinyanjui joining us live from here in Nairobi. Gentlemen, thank you very